There we go. Colleen, that's your fault. You need to remind me. Um, one more thing before I get into the PowerPoint and the things I have in there. I did talk to Marion this morning here in the office, and there are some agents that are trying to, in their minds, speed up the system by when things are settling, they're shooting things right off to Charlene over in our accounting department, which is a good thing, except you're bypassing Marion in our office, who actually settles the property with all the back end stuff that we have to do here. So please, while I know you're trying to speed things up, get it to Marion. Marion will notify Charlene that things have settled, but the process goes much smoother if you get it to her. Now I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So a couple things, just reminders for everybody. It seems like literally months and months ago, and it was, where they extended our renewal for our licenses. Guess what? We're now in the month of August, when August 29th is the deadline. For those of you that do not have your continuing education done, please get on your horse and take care of that. When I send out the notes to this particular meeting, I am going to include the PALS website URL so that everybody knows where to go after you have your CE credits to go ahead and do that. So just a reminder for you, August 29th, which is at the end of this month, got to have your CE in. Another reminder for you, I sent out a flyer and also an email to everybody last week about the Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices sales convention this year. It's going to be, next year in 2021, it's going to be held in Las Vegas. They are taking a lot of different precautions. You'll notice with the flyer that I sent out, there's actually an attachment to it that outlines all the procedures that they're going through to maintain safety with the coronavirus. This year's a little bit different also in that there is a virtual registration. So if you want to attend the convention but don't want to travel for personal reasons or because you're just concerned about the virus, you can register for a virtual ticket, and that way you'll have access to everything that's going on at the convention. I do want to remind everybody, the reason why I put this out there is because we as a company, we get involved with an early bird bulk registration. We've got to have all those people that want to register now. You need to get in touch with me by August 10th, which is coming up fairly quickly. So get in touch with me if you would like to purchase one of them. I'll make sure your name gets on the list. After August 10th, the price is going to go up. I think it's in the mid 400s. So I wanted to make everybody aware of that. So I got the results for the second quarter from Berkshire Hathaway, and in the second quarter, we were #1 in the Northeast region for units, and we were #7 in the entire Berkshire Hathaway network. I got to tell you, when I got the notification to this, I was floored. Now, I've been looking at the numbers that have been coming in during the pandemic and when we were shut down. Keep in mind, we're competing with other brokers from around our region and also across the country that weren't shut down like we were for literally 60, 75 days. So for us to accomplish this, for you guys to accomplish this, is just, in my viewpoint, an astounding feat that we actually put the numbers up that we did. So I tip my hat to everybody in the North Point office, from not only our core service providers who assisted us during that real difficult time, but the staff who operated remotely and did things kind of on the fly. to you as agents who are out there on a daily basis trying to figure out what I was saying on weekly meetings, because one thing I'd say one week and then I'd change it the next week, and the week after that it changed. I know it was really frustrating for you, but I got to tell you, you guys came through with flying colors. So congratulations to everybody. I will make sure that this particular slide itself, I'll send out to you in a JPEG or a PNG format, so you'll be able to post it on your social media pages if you would like. In addition, here's Lancaster County market stats for the first 6 months of this year, from January through June 30th. And as you'll see, there's the top 10 real estate companies. Once again, just an incredible job that everybody, not only at North Point, but across our marketplace footprint, has done in putting together transactions and keeping them together. You will see our next closest competitor, we're almost 3 times the number of units that they've done. So there you see the top 10 real estate companies, what has happened the first 6 months. Once again, another big congrats to everybody who contributed toward this. Once again, I'm going to take a slide like this. I'll produce it in a JPEG or PNG format, get it out to you, and that way you can post it on your social media, or you can put it in your listing presentations and consultations. One thing I want to bring up that we've encountered over the last couple of weeks, we have, in the old days, before coming soon and before broker exclusive and waiver of broker cooperation and all those forms and all those different ways to list properties, we just put in here the starting date of a listing contract was the date that you basically signed it. Now, occasionally you push it out a little bit to allow them time to do things. But there's a little bit of confusion now in that some agents are putting in this start date, the date after coming soon is over, or the date after the broker exclusive is over. That's not correct. The start date is when you take the listing, when it goes into Bright as a coming soon listing, we need to have it listed. We've been getting back with a couple of agents saying, listen, you got to get this taken care of because we can't get it into the system unless it is active, and it's active according to the paperwork. I ran into a situation about a week or so ago with I think it was a broker exclusive, where the property actually went under agreement. And when we looked at the listing date was actually after the property had gone under agreement. So I got in touch with the agent and said, you do want to get paid, right? Because according to what this says, the seller has the option of not really paying a commission because the transaction occurred before the property technically was listed. So I just want to bring it to everybody's attention. Once again, these are new things that we're dealing with over the last year or so with coming soon and broker exclusives. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that. In addition, with the assistance of our mortgage people and our title people, I've updated the guide to buyer and seller closing costs. And there's actually a twofold purpose for me doing this. I'm going to share with you the first thing, and I'm going to pull this, and I pulled it right out of the rules and regs of the State Real Estate Commission. And if you don't mind, I'm actually going to read this word for word. This is what it says about real estate agents and what they need to do with closing cost sheets. So it says, before an agreement of sale is executed, the brokers involved in the transaction shall provide each party with a written estimate of reasonably foreseeable expenses associated with the sale that the party may be expected to pay, including but not limited to the broker's commission, the mortgage payments and financing costs, taxes and assessments, and settlement expenses. The estimate of cost shall be as accurate as may be reasonably expected of a person having knowledge of and experience in real estate sales. Let me just pause right there. I highlighted a couple words in this paragraph. Estimate, reasonably foreseeable. Estimate, reasonably expected. This is not exact. It's not an exact science. However, the reason why I'm bringing this up now is I'm getting more and more transactions that I'm looking at where either agents don't have a cost sheet in there. By the way, it's required by the State Real Estate Commission, or we're running into situations where the agent is using a lender's quote. I got to tell you, especially with out of area lenders, with out of state lenders, these lenders are missing transfer taxes, they're missing broker fees, they're missing all kinds of things that are normal and customary to here in our area. So I would encourage you, if you don't know how to do a cost sheet because you just never, got in the habit of doing it, I would please take a moment and go through these documents, which I'm going to give you as PDFs. In each document, it does explain what the charge is for. And by the way, the reason why I was working with Homesale Settlement and Homesale Mortgage is they gave me costs. They gave me costs to what we're dealing with right now. And I'm going to continue to keep updating this over time. Now, they go hand in hand with the PAR form. But I do have to say, Bright has a very good closing cost program that you can enter things in there and save it as a template. But the thing is, I feel more comfortable, to be perfectly frank, with you as an agent doing the cost sheet versus a lender. And by the way, the lender, in many instances, gets you their costs ahead of time when they're pre-qualifying people or they're looking for approximate costs of what it would take to get involved with a $250,000 transaction. So you can take some of those lender costs, put it into your own cost sheet, and make sure that the specific costs that are okay for Lancaster County and broker fees, that they're on here. Once again, we're required to do it per the State Real Estate Commission. The excuse cannot be made, which I do hear quite often, well, that's what the lender did, so I'm relying on what the lender said were going to be the cost. If they are missing costs, it's our responsibility, okay? So a word to the wise on that. Listing presentations and listing consultations. The reason why I'm bringing this up, these have recently been updated within our systems, and I just wanted to make you aware, number one, that they exist. I want to share with you where they are and the multiple formats, as you see here. We now have them in digital presentations where you can view them on a web browser. You can download or customize PowerPoint presentations, and you can also get into Cloud CMA and you can customize things in there. And when we get to that portion over the next couple of slides, I'm going to share with you a brand new feature of Cloud CMA, which gives you another alternative as far as making presentations to people. So a digital presentation, where do you get these? Well, you don't have to write these down, because if you download this presentation afterwards, the links will be here. But all you have to do is click on these links. It will take you to digital presentations for luxury homes, for residential properties, for new construction properties. They are all downloaded into Issue, and you can post these things on your social media. You can post them on your website. You can send them to people that you're talking to that are interested in selling their real estate. Once again, it gives you something different or something that you can offer that not everybody else is. So digital presentations are available to you. In addition, downloadable presentations. By the way, the franchise has a listing presentation. The presentation I'm going to review here, this is one that is provided by Homesale. And how do you get there? You log on to homesaleCenter.com. You go to the tools and marketing resources, as I have marked in the red circle here, and click on listing presentation icon. You will then be able to go to a section that you can pull up a PowerPoint that is customizable. You can move things around. And oh, by the way, don't worry if you don't have PowerPoint. It is produced for you in a PDF format. However, in a PDF format, it's not customizable. but you can take these and you can put them on your tablets, you can put them on your laptops, and you can display things that way in addition to printing them out. Cloud CMA. Well, once again, how do you access Cloud CMA? You log on to HomeSaleCenter.com. Under Tools and Marketing Resources, just like you saw with the listing presentations, there is an icon that talks about Cloud CMA. This is what it looks like right here. This is actually their new logo. So some of the benefits of Cloud CMA, and if you haven't been in here, it's pretty easy to use. It's very user-friendly. It walks you through the steps, step by step. By the way, Homesale covers the cost of Cloud CMA. There's no additional charges for this. It's available to everybody in the company. And it does integrate with Bright MLS, as you'll see on the next slide. You can be in Bright and actually click on a button in Bright, and it will download things into Cloud CMA for you, so you don't have to copy and paste and do that type of thing. They do have an interactive mobile presentation that you can get involved with. You can customize the order of these pages. You can take things out. You can add things to it. And when you're comfortable with something, you can save it as a template. So the next time that you go back in, you won't have to worry about maybe creating the same thing from scratch, because a good portion of the Cloud CMA presentation, really, you're going to do it over and over again. And if you get comfortable with one way, I'd suggest save it as a template, okay? So how do you pull comps from Bright in Cloud CMA? Well, here in the one screenshot that I'm showing you, there's a sample listing. And as you're looking at that listing, you say, boy, that's pretty close to the comp, or excuse me, it's pretty close to the property that I'm trying to list. All the way down in the right-hand corner in the orange bar at the bottom of the page. It's a little too small here, but there's a link button there that says Cloud CMA. And if you click that button, it will automatically download that particular listing to Cloud CMA. You can either do that, or if you know what the MLS numbers are and you jot them down, you can go to Cloud CMA, open up Cloud CMA, and just type those numbers into a box, and all that stuff will integrate well with each other. So it's not something that you've got to constantly be going back and forth between programs. They're linked together pretty nicely. You can do a number of things once you have this presentation. I mentioned it in the last slide or two. You can preview pages. So as you're setting things up and you want to know how it actually looks in the final product, all you got to do is click the gray eye, and a box will pop up on your screen that'll show you exactly what you've done up to that point in time. You can remove pages. By the way, there's a lot of pages in Cloud CMA. There may be some of these pages that you look at and say, you know what, I don't really want this in my presentation. I think I'll get rid of it. You can certainly do that. It's real easy to do. You can actually add pages, which we'll talk about in a second. You can add pages to Cloud CMA that might be specific to you as an agent or to your team. And in addition, it comes in a standard format with all the pages 1 through whatever, and you may have a different format that you want. So you may want to take page number 27 and move it up to 14, or vice versa. You can move the pages around. Once again, it gets customized specifically to you as the agent. As far as adding custom pages, it's real easy to do. So let's say you want to put together something on yourself that's a brief resume, or something that deals with you or your team that you want to promote. You can actually create it in another program, let's say Microsoft Word, save it as a PDF, and then you can upload that PDF right into the program here, and then move that page around just like I shared with you on a previous page. Very, very simple to do. And you can create your own templates, just like you can with some of the other things that we talked about here. Once you have a template that you're comfortable with in Cloud CMA, there's a whole section there that you can get into and say, hey, I'd like to save this as a template, so the next time that I come in as Tom Blefko, agent at large, I can go right to my templates, and literally 90% of the presentation is already done again. I don't have to do it over and over and over again, which is a really nice feature. Now, one of the other things that is just literally came out in May that you may not be aware of, Cloud CMA can go live. Now, I'm going to turn it over to the YouTube video here. This is a very short video that explains what Cloud CMA Live actually is.
Hi, I'm Frances from W&R Studios, and I'm excited to tell you about Cloud CMA Live, a new interactive experience for Cloud CMA. With Cloud CMA Live, you can command the room at your next listing presentation with a 100% completely digital CMA. You can present on your notebook, tablet, or even stream to your client's TV. As a truly interactive experience, you can incorporate video, run through what-if scenarios, and search live MLS data. Draw attention to any part of the screen using our new Telestrator feature. And Cloud CMA Live makes virtual listing presentations a breeze with our built-in Zoom and Skype integrations. Whether your clients are out-of-towners or practicing social distancing, we've got you covered. With Cloud CMA Live and your printed Cloud CMA reports, you'll leave a lasting impression at the listing appointment, as well as leave your clients with a beautifully designed takeaway report. Best of all, Cloud CMA Live is a free enhancement for all Cloud CMA customers. You don't have to do anything different. Just create a Cloud CMA like you normally do and look for the new View Live link. Cloud CMA is part of the Cloud Agent Suite. Visit cloudagentsuite.com. And remember, with Cloud CMA, sales are looking up. Hi.
So this is a brand new feature. If you've been using Cloud CMA in the past and you didn't even know this existed, well, it does exist. It's pretty cool. I was in playing around with it over the last week or so. I used my own property as just kind of like a sample property, pulling properties over from Bright once again that were similar to my home that I live in. And then I put it on this interactive listing presentation. It is really, really nice. So if you are in a situation where you have to practice social distancing because of the clients that you're working with, or if you run into a situation where you're trying to do a listing presentation or a consultation and your client isn't living in this area and they're living in, Columbus, Ohio, and you still want to get them the correct information and tell them a little bit about what you can do, this is a perfect opportunity. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do with Cloud CMA that you couldn't do with, Cloud CMA Live that you couldn't do with a regular one. So I would encourage you to get in there and just play around with it a little bit. Once again, it is a free enhancement, doesn't cost anything. So you can get in and experiment a little. Did want to make you aware that that exists and that's brand new as of May. If you want to learn a little bit how to utilize the Cloud CMA and Cloud CMA Live, the company has put together YouTube videos for you. Once again, there are links here. You don't have to copy them down. You can download this presentation, click on the links, and you can take the video training with Jen Jones. She does a marvelous job of getting you up to speed with Cloud CMA. Okay, so one of the other things I'm starting to hear, and I mentioned it last week, the last meeting that we had, I said, don't be surprised if we all start getting back some appraisals that have been cut for a number of different reasons. And I'm going to get into some market factors as to why low appraisals actually come in. Some of these are because of the market that we're in right now. Some of them are previous markets. Foreclosures and short sales. We actually went through this probably about 7, 8 years ago, where these properties that were really depressed were screwing up appraisals. We're kind of through that at this point in time, so we don't have to worry about that too much. Overpriced properties. I think sellers are now starting to get to the point where they're seeing some things fly off the shelves. You as agents are starting to see this also. And we're now getting very aggressive with our pricing. Be very careful. Once again, we want to make sure that we're backing it up with comps. In addition, you could have a situation where you have a very unique property, has few comps, or there may not have been something had sold in that neighborhood for a period of time. Once again, we want to be able to, as listing agents, show not only our sellers, but you'll see in a second, show appraisers where we're coming up with our pricing. We're also getting a lot of inexperienced appraisers. I think everybody has either heard about this, where you sold a listing or your listing goes under agreement, and somebody from Philadelphia comes up here and does an appraisal on a property in Weatherburn, and they knew nothing about the development. It's very frustrating because sometimes they don't use the appropriate comps. It's a problem. It's going to continue. There's not a lot that we can do about it other than we can help the inexperienced appraiser, which I'll get to in a second. And also limited inventory, which is really what we're experiencing right now. I can't tell you how many agents in our office have come to me after they've listed a property, they comp it out at $250,000, and they say, geez, I hope this is going to go at $250,000. I really pushed it on the upper end. And then I visit with the agent in 2 days and they say, I got 14 offers and the highest one's $280,000. And they're blown away that the market is moving, number one, as fast as what it is, but that we're getting into these bidding wars. This is really the biggest issue that we have right now, is the limited inventory. And because people are trying to get into these properties, there's a lot of prices that are going up, but the comps really don't support it. So what do we do? So best practices for listing agents, and I shared this with you last meeting. Year over year, we're up 12%. That's the biggest jump I've ever seen in Lancaster County. I've been looking at these stats for a long time. I've never seen a jump like that in year over year from 1 month last year to the same month this year. Because of that, once again, we're going to probably continue to see appraisals come in a little short. The more data you can provide the appraiser as the listing agent, the better you will be, the more likelihood that the property is going to appraise. I think if you're a listing agent today and you are not doing what I'm about to tell you to do here, you're not doing your seller a service. We can't take for granted anymore that the appraiser is going to do their job. I mean, there's good appraisers out there. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to bash on the appraisal industry, but don't assume that you're going to get a good appraisal strictly because the market's really hot, okay? So here's what I would suggest. All the listing agents, do the following. Compile the following information, and when you learn who the appraiser is, get this information to them ahead of time as they're putting their appraisal together. Easiest way to do this is do email. Tell them how many showings that you had on the property. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to agents saying, the first day this thing hit the market, I had 40 showings on this thing over the last day or so. Share that with the appraiser. I think the appraiser needs to know that. How many offers did the sellers consider? Once again, I think we've all heard stories from people who are saying, I'm getting into these multiple offer situations, not only on the buy side, but on the sell side, where the seller is considering 6, 7, 8, 10 offers. Let the appraiser know that this particular price, there were 10 other offers almost like this. Provide specific comps you would like them to consider. Do not wait till after the appraisal's done and then supply the comps. I think we need to be proactive in the market that we're in right now. And by the way, if you can't come up with comps that support the price, how in God's name are you expecting the appraiser to do the exact same thing? We need to be more realistic with our sellers, making them aware ahead of time. Hey, I want to let you know, here's where we just accepted an agreement. This is the highest comp I could find. They need to be aware of this ahead of time. I think the more that we tell and kind of let our sellers know what to expect as we go through the sale process, the better off we're going to be. And also, don't forget, if there are upgrades or updates that were done to the house, don't think automatically that the appraiser is going to pick them up as they walk through the property. And keep in mind, we talked about the first part of this meeting, appraisers are real busy right now. There's a lot of appraisers that are getting to the property and they're spending 15, 20 minutes, maybe at an appraisal, and they're out of there. They may be missing some major components. Make sure you make a list of those, provide them to the appraiser so that the appraiser has those. And once again, don't assume that the appraiser is going to go the extra mile for you. Don't wait until after the appraisal comes in and then say, hey, let me give you all this stuff. It may be too late at that point in time. Be proactive in the market that we're in right now. So what are the options with low appraisals? Let's assume it does come in low. I'm going to review real quickly some of the options that are available to you. These are probably the major ones that I share with agents, because they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, we got a low appraisal. Where do I go from here? Or what do I do? Well, the buyer can make up the difference in cash between the appraised value and the sale price. Now you say to yourself, God, why would a buyer even do that? Well, I got to tell you, and I think everybody knows at this point in time, in the market that we're in, there's a lot of buyers out there that regardless of where the appraised value comes in, they're willing to pay a little bit extra just to get the house that they want because they've lost out on 5 or 6 properties, okay? A low appraisal doesn't mean the lender won't lend. It just means that it will make a loan based upon the loan to value ratio agreed upon in the contract. And oh, by the way, I just dealt with this past week. Make sure if you're working with a buyer that you fill in what the loan to value is in the agreement of sale. We ran into one this past week. Thank God it wasn't ours, but the co-op agent just left the loan to value blank. That's a recipe for disaster. Okay, we ended up getting a low appraisal. That buyer is in a little bit of a pickle right now. So make sure you're filling in that loan to value. And the buyer might pay some of the seller's closing costs instead of boosting the price. By the way, a lot of this stuff you may want to talk to the lender about so that you're doing it the proper way, because the last thing you want to do as you're negotiating this stuff is do something and you get in touch with the lender after the fact that the lender says, you can't do that. Reduce the price if the value was inflated. By the way, I would go to my seller, and not only has to do with appraisals, but it also has to do with inspections. In the market that we're in right now, everybody, we're all happy when we get our properties under agreement, which is great. However, inform your seller, set the level of expectation. This is the first step. We have to deal with the inspections next. We have to deal with the appraisal. Make sure that they're aware that you may have to come back to them and talk with them about something that maybe it wasn't addressed in the agreement of sale, but will now have to be afterwards. So even though you get that $250 sale price, as you see here, you may have to come down to $245 because it only appraises out at that. If the buyer walks because the seller won't reduce the price, there's no guarantee that the seller is going to get that price on a second go round. You could still get the same appraisal or something close to the same appraisal. So you really want to have a heart-to-heart discussion with your seller about, hey, do you really want to put this back in the market, go through another 30 to 60 days, and we might be in the same boat that we're in right now. Make sure that they're aware of that. And putting it back on the market may be wasting time with the same result. Just talked about that. So sometimes you can meet in the middle. The buyer can bring it up a little bit. In this particular scenario, let's say the buyer comes up maybe $2,500, the seller comes down $2,500. Sometimes that's a good compromise, but you got to get it on the table so everybody's aware of it. Once again, seller can lower the cash. Seller lowers the price a little bit, buyer pays a little bit more in cash. And before I get to that, once again, check with your lender. Make sure the lender's okay with this based upon what's going on and what type of mortgage they've applied for. Seller may be able to carry a second mortgage for the difference. If the seller is okay with leaving some money in the property, it's a good option to consider. However, having said that, don't let it up to the seller to put all the documents together. Make sure that an attorney or somebody else is putting together those documents so that the seller is protected if the buyer stops paying. Don't you put it together, or don't have the buyer and seller do a handshake because after the property is settled upon, that handshake means absolutely nothing. Sometimes you just get a second opinion. Now, I will say there's less and less companies out there that are willing to go back and have a second appraisal done. It can be done, but it's got to be agreed upon not only by the buyer, but also by the lender. So keep that in mind if you're going back to get a second opinion. By the way, if you're going to have a second appraisal, there's another fee involved too. So you're going to have to figure out who's paying for that fee. Is that something the buyer's going to pay for? I seriously doubt. So if the seller wants to do that, you may have to talk with the seller about, hey, if you really want to push this, there might be a fee involved. So just be aware that that might be the case. And finally, you can actually terminate it. Once again, I share with people all the time, and I've seen it happen over and over again, where the seller just digs in their heels and says, I ain't budging. And the buyer says, I ain't budging either. By the way, the buyer's holding the cards. If they've constructed the agreement of sale correctly, the buyer can walk. Now the seller gets the property back on the market. And in another 60 days, they're sitting in the same boat as they were 60 days previously. And oh, by the way, just a note, many of you know this, but if the first appraisal was an FHA appraisal, that runs with the property for 120 days. So if the first appraisal came in, and let's say it's a prime candidate with the sale price for another FHA agreement, but the seller didn't want to proceed because they felt the FHA appraisal was too low, and they put it back in the market, they're not going to be able to accept anything other than a conventional or maybe a VA at that point in time. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that. So those are kind of the options with what happens when we get into a situation where we have a low appraisal. As you saw, there's probably about a half a dozen options that you can look at. I would put all of them on the table for your respective clients and make sure that they're aware of them. However, I told you at the very beginning of this, the best thing that you can do, especially as a listing agent, is be proactive in these transactions. Don't wait for that low appraisal to come in. Make sure you're reaching out and getting information to the appraiser so that they can take a look at the information you're providing them and perhaps use it in the transaction or in the appraisal that they're putting together. There's no guarantee, but at least you're fulfilling your fiduciary obligation to your seller, okay? Finally, we're right at the end of our time here. I shared some really nice things at the beginning of this meeting where, you know, our market share is incredible in Lancaster County here. This particular office was just blowing it out of the ballpark. I tip my hat to everybody here. We've gone through a really rough climb over the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months. I love this quote. As a matter of fact, if you're in my office, I look at it every day on my wall. It's a little bit different than this, but it basically says the best view comes from the hardest climb. We've been through an incredibly hard climb, incredibly. You guys have come through it with flying colors. Continue to do what you're doing, and we're going to end up in 2020 with some really, really great numbers at the end of the year. Everybody have a great day. Glad everybody made it through the hurricane that I can't pronounce. And I'll talk with you in 2 weeks on our next Zoom call. Take care, everyone.